Alex, I spent 20 minutes this morning looking for my 1/4 inch brass drift. 20 minutes of my life I'll never see again, all because I thought putting it away meant tossing it toward the general zip code of the metal lathe.
Only 20 minutes? That's a new personal record for you. Usually, it's a 2-hour archaeological dig through those coffee cans you keep under the bench.
Hey, those cans are a curated ecosystem of hardware from 1994. But seriously, it hit me while I was digging through a box of rusty washers. My shop isn't messy because I'm lazy. It's messy because I haven't respected the way I actually move when I'm working. We talk about wood grain and weld penetration all day, but the real soul of a craft is how fast you can grab the thing you need without breaking your stride.
It's the where is the thing tax. And you've been paying a high interest rate lately. But it's a real problem for everyone. Whether you've got a massive industrial space or a corner of the garage, if you can't find the 10 millimeter socket, and let's be honest, nobody can ever find the 10 millimeter socket, the creativity just evaporates.
Exactly, it's a momentum killer. If I'm in the middle of fitting a tenon and I have to stop, move a stack of plywood, and dig through a dark cabinet for a shoulder plane, I've lost the feel for the wood. So today, I want to tear down the walls on tool storage. Not just buy a box, but how to build a nervous system for your shop that actually works with you.
A nervous system. You're getting poetic about pegboards again. But all right, let's start with the big philosophical divide. Do we hide the tools away in drawers like a secret treasure, or do we let it all hang out on the walls?
I used to be a drawer guy. I thought everything should be tucked away, pristine, protected from the dust. But I realized I was living in a state of constant out of sight, out of mind. I'd buy a new countersink bit because I forgot I already had 3 of them buried at the bottom of a steel chest. These days, I'm a massive fan of open storage.
I can see the appeal. It's like a visual menu. But doesn't everything get covered in a thick layer of shop glitter, also known as sawdust?
It does. That's the trade-off. But I found that if I can see my chisels, I use my chisels. If they're hidden in a felt-lined box inside a drawer, I'm more likely to try and use a screwdriver for something it wasn't meant for. Jim Peterbaugh over at Fine Woodworking talks about this, making tools visible to improve efficiency. It's about grouping things by activity zones.
Activity zones. Okay, break that down for me. You mean like a drilling station or a sanding corner?
Just like that. In my shop, my lathe tools aren't across the room by the table saw. They're on a rack right behind the lathe. I can reach back without even taking my eyes off the spindle. It's about reducing the steps per task. If you're building a project, you should be dancing, not hiking.
I've seen you dance, Tiger. It's more of a rhythmic stumble, but I get it. It's about the proximity. What about the small stuff, though? The nuts, bolts, and those tiny little set screws that like to vanish into the fourth dimension.
Those are the soul crushers. For the small bits, you need a universal organizer. I'm talking about those tough polypropylene bins with adjustable compartments. If you can't see through the lid, you're already losing. I once spent an entire Saturday morning opening every single opaque plastic box I owned just to find a specific size of cotter pin. I ended up finding them in the pocket of my shop apron after I'd already driven to the hardware store.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You spend the money on the professional organizer, but then you're too disorganized to use it. But what about the folks who don't have a permanent den? The people working out of a truck or a shared space?
That's where the mobile strike force comes in. That's your rolling cabinets and tool trolleys. If you've got a shop where you're constantly shifting between woodworking and working on the car, everything needs to have wheels. A good tool trolley with swivel casters is like a loyal assistant. It follows you to the work.
I've seen some of those high-end rolling chests that cost more than my first car. Are they worth it? Or is a $50 plastic box just as good?
You get what you pay for in terms of drawer slides. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, more aggravating than a fully loaded tool drawer that sticks halfway open. You're there, tugging on the handle, the whole cabinet is tipping toward you. It's a recipe for a trip to the emergency room. Go for the ball-bearing slides. They should feel like butter, even when they're holding 50 pounds of wrenches.
Okay, let's talk about the holy grail of the internet shop, the French cleat. Every YouTube woodworker has a wall of these. Is it a cult, or is it actually useful?
Guaranteed it's a bit of a cult, but for a good reason. The French cleat is just 2 pieces of wood cut at a 45-degree angle that interlock. One stays on the wall, the other stays on the tool holder. The beauty of it is that your shop can evolve.
So you aren't committed to the layout forever?
Exactly. When I first started, I thought I'd be doing a lot of carving. I built this elaborate rack for 20 different gouges, Turns out I carve about as often as I run marathons, which is never. Because of the cleats, I just lifted the whole rack off the wall and replaced it with a holder for my cordless drills. If I'd used a pegboard with those little wire hooks that fall out every time you touch them, I would have been stuck with a bunch of holes in my wall.
Oh, the pegboard hooks. I hate those things. You pull a hammer off, and the hook decides it wants to go on an adventure across the floor.
That's the pegboard tax. You can buy those little plastic clips to hold the hooks in place, but that's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. If you're going the pegboard route, get the heavy-duty metal ones. Or better yet, build yourself some custom holders. There's a deep, primal satisfaction in making a home for a specific tool. It's like saying, I value this tool enough to give it its own bed.
You're weirdly sentimental about your mallet, Tiger. But I suppose if it has a specific home, you're more likely to put it back.
That's the everything in its place rule. But here's the mistake most people make. They organize for the shop they have, not the shop they're bog growing into. You need to leave expansion joints in your storage.
Expansion joints, like in a bridge?
Same concept. If you build a tool rack that fits exactly 6 wrenches, I guarantee you'll buy a 7th wrench next week. Then that 7th wrench sits on the bench because it doesn't fit the system. Then the 8th wrench joins it. Before you know it, your bench is gone again. Always build your storage with 20% more room than you currently need.
That's actually really practical. Speaking of benches, what about the dead space? You know, the overhead areas or the dark corners under the stairs?
That's prime real estate. Overhead cabinets are perfect for the stuff you only use twice a year. Your seasonal jigs, your holiday-themed router bits, or that specialized puller you bought for one specific car repair. But don't put your heavy stuff up there.
Let me guess. A story is coming.
I once stored a gallon of wood glue on a high shelf right above my main assembly table. The shelf bracket, which I'd quickly installed with drywall screws, decided to give up the ghost in the middle of a July heat wave. I came out the next morning to find what looked like a crime scene involving a giant marshmallow. It took me 3 days to scrape that bench clean.
I would have just moved houses. That's it. New shop.
It was tempting, but it taught me a lesson. Convenience is the enemy of stability. If you're putting something high up, bolt it to a stud. Don't trust a plastic wall anchor to hold your heavy power tools.
Now, what about the job site boxes? The big, heavy steel ones you see in the back of trucks. Is there a place for those in a home shop?
If you got expensive tools and you aren't the only one with a key to the shop, absolutely. Theft is a reality, unfortunately. But even beyond security, those job site boxes are great for long-term protection. If you live in a humid area, like my shop in the middle of a swamp, those gasket-sealed lids are the only thing keeping your cast iron from turning into a pile of rust flakes overnight.
Rust is the silent killer. I remember you had that vintage table saw that looked like it had been salvaged from the Titanic.
It wasn't vintage, it was just neglected. I've learned my lesson. Now every drawer has a silica gel packet, and every tool has a coat of wax. But that brings up another point. Maintainability. Your storage system should make it easier to maintain your tools, not harder. If I have to pull 5 boxes out of a cabinet just to get to the oil for my sharpening stones, I'm not going to sharpen my tools as often. And a dull tool is a dangerous tool.
This all feels like it's leading back to one thing: intentionality. It's not about buying the right bins. It's about looking at your hands while you work and seeing where they want to go.
Spot on. My current setup is what I call the cockpit method. When I'm standing at my workbench, the tools I use 90% of the time are within a 3-foot radius. Measuring tapes, squares, marking knives, and my favorite block plane. The stuff I use 9% of the time is in the drawers right below that. The stuff I use 1% of the time, that's in the Museum of Tools in the back corner.
The Museum of Tools. Is that where your aspirational tools live? The ones you bought because you saw them in a magazine but haven't actually figured out how to use yet?
Hey, that dovetail jig is a work of art. One day, I'll actually read the manual. But you're right. Don't let your aspirational projects dictate your workflow. Organize for the work you do, not the work you wish you did.
Okay, let's wrap this up with some shop myths. What's the biggest lie people believe about tool storage?
The biggest lie is that a finished shop exists. Your shop is a living organism. As your skills change, your tools change. As your tools change, your storage has to change. If you build a workshop that feels like a tomb, static and unchangeable, you're going to hate it in 6 months.
So the lesson is, stay flexible, keep it modular, and for heaven's sake, don't use drywall screws to hang your heavy stuff.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, label your bins, I know it feels like admitting defeat, but knowing exactly which drawer holds the 1/4 inch screws will save you more time than any fancy power tool ever will.
Look at that. Found it. And only by talking about it for 20 minutes.
I told you, the shop provides eventually.
At the end of the day, a well-organized shop is a sign of respect. Respect for your tools, respect for the material, and mostly respect for your own time. When you stop fighting your environment, that's when the real craft starts.
Well said, Tiger. Now, can we go find that 10mm socket? I'm pretty sure it's in your coffee cup.
Knowing my luck, it probably is.